This was a familiar scene at a train station near Stuttgart, Germany, during the late 1940s and early 1950s. For Armenian refugees displaced by World War II, it was a time to celebrate the opportunity for a new life for those who were leaving, and a time to weep for those who would be left behind. Though strangers only a few years before, their common struggle for survival had forged a bond that would bind them together like members of one family for the rest of their lives. It was the late summer of 1939 when German armies invaded Poland, plunging Europe and eventually the world into the most terrible war in history. In each country they conquered, Germans promptly implemented the New Order, a plan to make Germany the strongest nation in Europe by depriving conquered European countries of food, industry, and manpower. From areas of the Soviet Union under German control, this plan imported wheat, iron, coal, and millions of slave laborers. Among these laborers were many displaced Armenians. Some left willingly, others were captured and taken by force. The Armenian refugees had come from different parts of Russia. For many of them, their migration had originated in other countries, such as Greece and Armenia. After the war ended, their separate journeys, however varied, brought them to a place they would call home for the next few years. They elected a democratic governing body which organized an internal police force, a jail, and a newspaper. They established a church for apostolic worshipers and contracted a church outside of the camp for Catholics. They were able to observe their faith in a dignified manner. A school was organized with several highly educated instructors where the children whose education had been interrupted by war continued their studies in math, geography, music, Armenian history, Armenian language, as well as physical education. Although in the early years, the DPs received aid from the American government, the camp quickly developed a self-sufficient economy by manufacturing shoes which were traded for food, clothing, and other commodities in German towns and other refugee camps. The DPs of Stuttgart had come from different walks of life as well as different areas. Among them were professors, artists, musicians, athletes, merchants, and craftsmen. Once survival had been ensured, the talents and skills of these individuals emerged to create an active and rich cultural and social life. The camp maintained its own chamber orchestra, folk musicians, folk dance ensemble, dramatic theater, and a separate youth theater group. A resident ballet master provided instruction in dance. Along with performing arts, athletic activities were also organized. Young athletes trained in the camp's gym and participated in sports such as wrestling, boxing, weightlifting, volleyball, and soccer. They often competed against teams and athletes from other refugee camps, which included international chess competition. An experienced scoutmaster was appointed and uniforms donated by a sponsor for the camp's own scout troops. The Scouts were a source of great pride at special events, such as the celebration of Armenian Independence Day on May 28th. For the older generation who remembered the days of Armenia's short-lived independence and who had been forced to suppress their nationalism since its annexation to the Soviet Union, it was a day to celebrate their nationalist pride and freedom of expression. For the youth who had been deprived of cultural education and who in the camp had the opportunity to learn about their heritage, this was a day to acknowledge and celebrate their newfound cultural identity. And celebrate they did, with speeches, with music, and fireworks. The camp was a self-contained, self-sufficient community nicknamed by the Germans Kleine Armenia, or Little Armenia. There was safety, intimacy, and joy within its walls, and it's no wonder that almost 50 years later, many still recall those years as the best days of their lives. Despite the security and sense of community they had found there, the camp was nevertheless a temporary home, and they knew eventually they would need to move on. With the help of Mrs. Eleanor Roosevelt, and through the organization of ANCHA, the American National Committee to Aid Homeless Armenians, formed by George Mardikian and Suden Saroyan, and the generous sponsorships of Armenian American families, many families migrated to the United States.
Samrana manku
Separations were devastating, dividing these members of a now close-knit family and dispersing them throughout the vast country called America. Once here, however, that special bond continued to call them together, to congregate in Fresno, San Francisco, and to a large extent, Los Angeles. Once again, they began to build new lives and new communities, erecting a school, monument, and church, sponsoring cultural and social events, and perpetuating the camaraderie established in the camp. I should like to see any power of this world destroy this race. This small tribe of unimportant people whose history has ended, whose wars have been fought and lost, whose structures have crumbled, whose literature is unread, whose music is unheard, and whose prayers are no more answered. Go ahead, destroy this race, destroy Armenia, see if you can do it. Send them from their homes into the desert. Let them have neither bread nor water. Burn their homes and churches. Then see if they will not sing and pray again. For when two of them meet anywhere in the world, see if they will not create a new Armenia.